we've had some that when we've had the flooding and things of that nature, we've been able to do some networking to help them get some assistance that they probably wouldn't have been able to obtain without the connections that ABMA has. The Watershed Project, even though, I know you mentioned things other than that, is really major when we look at the fact of the
It is.
billions, really billions of dollars that will need to be spent to get our cities in the position that they need to be as far as that flooding, because that deals with infrastructure, design, and
And that's
construction.
what I was going to say. Can you? And I'm not trying to interrupt you,
No, you're fine.
but I want to stay on that for a minute. Can you tell us exactly, for those that don't know what the Watershed Program is, can you kind of give a little more detail for those that may be curious of what that is?
And I'll try to put it in terms that are understandable for me to make it understandable for
Exactly.
everybody else. Because when we look at the Watershed
Mm-hmm.
Project, it really does affect not only the state of Arkansas, but the surrounding areas. When we look at, and I'm just going to be honest with you, the Watershed Project is important because it takes care of not only prevention, but the restoration of our resources. And I say
Mm-hmm.
prevention, and it should be more prevention, because when you really look at it, we see that there's been some construction issues that made things the way that they are now. If we were more in tune
Mm-hmm.
with our natural resources and the natural flow of things, I don't think we'd be in this position. And that's why it's going to take so much to change things. When we're looking at it's called the watershed because there's so many different bodies of water that this plays into. Now, when we look at it from a Union County perspective, an El Dorado perspective, we look at the fact that when we get a hard rain here in El Dorado now, we know that it causes a lot of flooding. Well, you're probably not old enough to remember when this was never an issue. But when we look at how
Mm-hmm.
bridges have been built, how drainage has been put in, and it wasn't always done with the foresight of what the future was going to look like. Now with this
Mm-hmm.
project, they're having to go back and try to redo some of that construction, trying to widen some of those drains, trying to make sure that even in the city limits, that all of the water, because we don't see any lakes right here in the city of El Dorado, but we know that there's a watershed that the water flows through. So, and I'm
Right.
probably not explaining this as good as a scientist or whomever could, but because that infrastructure has been dated, because it wasn't necessarily put in the right way in the first
Mm-hmm.
place, because there's been construction in areas where it probably never should have been in the first place. Now
Mm-hmm.
we're dealing with all of those issues. El Dorado floods because of the drainage issue, and because those the pipes and all of that, a lot of that has been destroyed through the wear and tear. But some of it is because it never should have been done like that in the first place in the area that it was done. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a big project because now they're trying to go through and change those things that were done wrong, and it's going to take a lot of time, a lot of effort, and a lot of money. Even when we look at paving streets in El Dorado, you have to think about the water flow and things of that nature. And so this is really, there's been billions of dollars put forth towards it. I think the state of Arkansas got over $100 million, but when you look at the entire state, that's not near enough as to what it's going to
Mm-hmm.
take to try to rectify a lot of those problems. We, had several
Right.
meetings in the city of El Dorado where people could discuss some of the flooding issues in their neighborhoods,